Good afternoon, welcome back to Content Classroom. This week I want to talk to you about video and audio setup. It's something I get a lot of conversation with people about. Some people are less fussed, some people are more fussed. It really depends on the sort of person you are and how important you are making video in what you're doing. But what I'm going to give you advice on today is more general advice that everybody can use. First things first, it is perfectly acceptable to use what you've got to hand. People don't expect super polished videos, super polished results. And in fact, I'd argue to an extent that the more organic and in the moment and natural you can make it, the more people are going to align with you because they'll see that you're a genuine person. Video is the one thing that to this point AI can't fit well. It certainly can't fake you and it can't fake your experience and opinions. So by showcasing yourself on video, you're coming across as an authentic, credible expert. In terms of the quality of setup, interestingly, and most people are going to laugh when I say this, the most important thing to getting video right is your audio. So I'd highly recommend, if you're recording stuff, that you splash out on a good quality microphone. There's two different types of microphone. Well, there's three. There's your standard microphone that you'll get with your computer that's attached into your webcam or your laptop. It's all perfectly fine and they'll do an average job. You've then got desktop USB microphones, your Rode, Shure, Blue Yetis, those sorts of things. And they're fine. They're really good. They're great, but they do take up a lot of desk space. And for me, that's quite a challenge. I also like to record out in the field. I like to be recording outdoors. I like to be, thinking on a walk and recording as I go. So that's not always practical for me. And so I've invested in, I don't know whether you can see it, but I've invested in a wireless Go 2. So that's made by Rode. And what it does is it broadcasts directly to the computer or to my phone. And actually you can record audio direct onto it. So if you're just doing an audio recording, maybe you're recording a podcast, you can record direct to the device and download it later. It has memory on it. But I find that the quality of recording from this device actually is better than anything else I've got. And I'm now preferring this over my USB microphone. It does also come with a little fluffy wind protector for when you're outside. And honestly, people refuse to do recordings outside because of all the wind noise and cars passing and different things. Actually, with this and studio sound from Descript overlaid over the top of it, you can't even tell outdoors. Is brilliant, really is. So it's not cheap, and probably for most of you out there who are just starting out in video, you've got to step up. I did. I've had 2 or 3 desk mics. I've tried various different wireless lavs that were cheap, and in the end, I've invested in this. It cost me £130 second hand, but came with a charging case, and honestly, one of the best investments I've made. Okay, so cameras. There are 4K cameras and there are 4K cameras. Most of you out there don't need 4K. When would we use 4K? Right. For a start, there's no social media that is capable of using 4K video yet. Might be down the line, but it's a long way off. The internet's just not fast enough on average to be using 4K. The very best you can get is 1080p. And most of you will have a 1080p camera as standard. If you've got a 720p camera, which is probably like a laptop camera or a built-in desktop camera, it's probably not going to be good enough. You need 1080 if you're going to be doing video, if you want to do anything other than just record it and put it straight out. The moment you start to clip screen sizes to make portrait format, square format, whatever you want to do with it, it's going to fall down. Can you use your mobile phone? Absolutely you can. And if you've got a decent smartphone, you should be using that where you've got the opportunity, because the camera on that probably smashes anything else you've got to bits. However, it's not always the easiest to position. It's a bit awkward. And unless you're out and you've got it on a camera tripod and then you've got that whole moving about thing that not everybody's comfortable with, it's not great. It's not ideal. So for at the desk, I would recommend a 4K camera so that you've got that future flexibility no matter what you want to do. And I'd suggest getting a decent 4K camera. Now, you can go as far as to get a DSLR camera, like what we'd use for photography, a mirrorless one, and you can get USB pass-throughs, they start to get extremely expensive. You're looking at £1,000 plus for one of those, but they are the most amazing way of doing it. So if you're very serious about doing it, you're maybe a photographer at heart, you like doing video, I'd highly recommend getting one of those set up behind your computer in a stand where you can clip it on and clip it off. They are the best you can get. The main reason for that is they're going to deal with your white balance. So if you've got a light coming in, it's going to understand your white exposure. It's going to highlights, it's got shadows on there. It's going to give you a great quality of picture and also depth. So behind me is going to be blurred out. The picture in front of you is going to be nice and sharp. It's going to react to where I move. It's going to focus in and out. All those things, you get what you pay for. So DSLR camera, if you can afford it, is absolutely the way to go. I can't afford one. I don't have one, right? I've got a DSLR. It's not the sort that would work with a computer, so I'm not there yet. But I have clients who do, and the difference in what I have versus what they have is amazing. If you can't get that or you don't have that, then I'd recommend, at the moment, I'd recommend the Opal C1, which is what I record from. And the Opal is sort of mid-level expensive. I think brand new, they're about $300, roughly £300 as well, to be honest, by the time you get them into the UK. Very good at picking up a lot of the things DSLR camera would do. Unfortunately, on a Mac, it doesn't give the background blur, right? It does allow that on a Windows PC. It doesn't do it on a Mac. They are working on it. But the beauty of the Opal C1 is they're still working on the program. It's got processing power built into it. It's actually got a decent microphone on there as well. And it's very simple to set up and use. And you can even, with the app that comes with it, you can even have your logo already printed on to the image, hard coded on, so that when you're doing it, it's one less step to put into your video editing software. Lighting is another one that's really important. Now, consider I paid £40 for an Amazon light that sits behind the camera. It's got lots of different modes on it where you can be cool white, bright white, room light. You can increase and decrease the temperature, and I'll show you it now. It's very simple, up and down, you know, nothing too complex on it. It really does fill in the shadows from this side, because I've got bright light on this side leads into the house and there's not much light from there. I've got some light from above, but under my eyes tends to get shadowed out, panda eyes. That light fills in all those gaps. So I wouldn't be without that, and it's not expensive at £40. You can get tripods and things for them as well. A lot of my clients also have, or instead of that, they have a ring light that goes around their camera behind it, sits behind there, and it's attached to the camera in the middle. And that is probably as perfect as it gets. There is an issue for those of you that wear glasses where you get the glare off the glasses. And I will put a link in the newsletter for you to have a look at an article where it discusses how to try and reduce some of that, that glare. It's a little bit more involved, it's a little bit more technical, but definitely worth it, because I think there's nothing more distracting when you're trying to look into someone's eyes to, one, notice that they normally wear glasses, but they're not wearing them for the video shoot. You can tell. Or two, when you're trying to look someone in the eyes and you can't because there's too much glare there. The other thing to call out, and I had this with a client recently where they had really shiny skin. So it must be a lovely problem to have, because my skin is dried out and it's just very matte. I never have that problem. But for those of you that do, I would highly advise getting some matting powder. Just like, you're going to laugh, but just like they use on the TV, it's exactly the same stuff. Comes in a little pot. You can get it for £10 from Amazon. Pat it on before you go on camera, and it just takes away that glare, that reflective surface, and lets you record without any distraction. That's my advice on camera setup and audio setup. Tall and short of it is, the more expensive you can afford, the better the results you're going to get. It's not a case of you can do it at budget and do really, really well. If you're doing it budget, you have to accept that your quality is going to be compromised in some way, shape or form. How important it is to you delegates your budget. And I'm sure that, like me, as you progress through that conversation with yourself, that you will start to justify the more expensive kit as you go. It can be a very expensive hobby. So do set limits. You know, ask yourself at any point, is this good enough for me? I won't just quickly go back to 4K, because I realized I didn't finish that off. 4K would only ever be used on YouTube. And in my personal opinion, 1080 is more than enough for YouTube most of the time. 4K is only ever going to be when somebody puts it on their big screen TV. That's when you'll see the difference. So if you're creating the sort of content that you'd want people to be watching on a big screen TV, maybe that's in a meeting room because it's training materials and course materials, or because it's more B2C sort of socially conversations where somebody might be playing it during family time to talk with a family or whilst sitting down together to watch it as a family, then maybe you want to consider that 4K. It does also help boost your search rankings on YouTube if your content is 4K. But that is pretty much the only place you will ever use it right now. So don't worry about the 4K element just yet. 1080 is good enough, but a lot of the good quality cameras are 4K. If that's the case, you can record in 4K so that you've got it there for future use, or just turn the quality settings down to 1080 so that it can do what it needs to do. Fantastic. I will catch you next week on the Content Classroom. Have a great week. Bye-bye.